Brr. I saved the Apache girl from the train, and I couldn't resist her after. It was a bright and quiet morning in the small town where he lived. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Birds were singing softly, and the cool air carried the faint smell of the earth and grass from the nearby fields. He had woken up early, as he always did, to finish his chores before the town fully woke. Bert. Working on the ranch was not just a job for him, it was a way of life. Something that kept him grounded and connected to the world around him. Burrs. Horses neighing in the distance and the soft clatter of tools being put away filled the air as he finished repairing a fence that had weakened during the last storm.
He was about to take a short break when he decided to walk toward the train tracks nearby.
It was a routine he often followed after his chores. A small path that led to the tracks offered him a quiet moment to breathe and think. The town was peaceful, almost sleepy, but there was something about the tracks that made him feel alert and alive. He liked to watch the trains pass and imagine faraway places he had never visited. As he walked along the gravel path, he noticed movement in the distance. At first, he thought it might be a stray animal or a townsperson heading to the station. But then he realized it was a girl, no more than 16 or 17, walking dangerously close to the edge of the tracks. Her long, dark hair fluttered in the breeze, and she seemed unaware of the approaching train. Her small figure looked fragile and lost. Inspiration. Something about her stance and the way she moved sent a chill down his spine. Without thinking, he started running toward her. His heart pounded not just from the effort but from the sudden rush of fear. He didn't know who she was or why she was so close to the tracks, but he couldn't just stand there. Every step brought him closer, and the sound of the train's horn grew louder, more urgent. His mind raced. He had to act fast, or it would be too late. "Hey, watch out," he shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. The girl turned slightly, startled, but her feet didn't move fast enough. The train was approaching, a massive, roaring metal machine that seemed unstoppable. Time felt slower, as if the world had paused for a moment to test him. Instincts kicked in, and he lunged forward, grabbing her arm and pulling her to safety just as the train thundered past, sending a strong gust of wind that knocked him both to the ground. They lay there for a moment, gasping, the train's rumble fading into the distance. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes, and he could see the shock etched across her face. He brushed the dust off her clothes and stood up, helping her to her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but urgent. Inspiration. She nodded slowly, still trembling. Inspiration. "I didn't see it coming," she whispered, her voice shaky. I didn't mean to." Brace. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." Inspiration. He noticed her hands shaking and her gaze fixed on the tracks as if she couldn't believe what had just happened. There was something in her eyes, a mix of fear, relief, and something he couldn't quite name, that made his chest tighten. He realized in that moment that he didn't just feel relief that she was safe. He felt a strange, powerful pull toward her. It was unexpected, confusing, but undeniable. The girl finally looked up at him fully.
"Thank you," she said softly.
Inspiration. Her voice was quiet but steady, and there was a depth to it that made him pause. I
don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been here. You don't have to thank me," he replied.
Anyone would have done the same. But even as he said it, he felt the truth in his chest. He had acted because he couldn't ignore her, because something inside him demanded he protect her. For a few moments they just stood there, catching their breath. The wind had died down, and the world seemed to have returned to its calm state. But the memory of the train, the roar, the near danger, and the intensity of the moment lingered between them like a silent thread. He noticed her clothes were simple but neat, her shoes worn from walking, and her expression carried a mixture of pride and vulnerability. "You live around here?" he asked, trying to start a conversation and ease the tension. Brr. She nodded. "Yes, Operation."
Not far from here. I just like to walk sometimes.
Operation. He smiled faintly. Burr out.
Walking is good. Just maybe not so close to the tracks next time.
Operation.
She gave a small, embarrassed smile. I'll try. After a moment, he realized that the incident might have been witnessed by someone else.
A few townspeople were emerging from the distance, looking surprised but impressed. Rumors travel fast in a small town, and he knew this story would spread quickly. Brr. He felt a bit self-conscious but didn't let it show. His attention was on the girl. Brr. "Do you want me to walk you home?" he asked. She hesitated for a second, but then nodded. They started walking together along the gravel path. The conversation was light at first, talking about the town, the weather, and the trains, but he could feel the cautious curiosity growing between them. Brr. She asked him questions and he answered, noticing the way her eyes lit up when she was genuinely interested. As they walked, he noticed small details about her, the way she held herself, the careful way she stepped over stones, the subtle grace in her movements. Brr. He felt a strange mix of admiration and protectiveness, emotions he hadn't expected to feel so strongly. He realized that saving her had changed something in him. Awakened feelings he hadn't known were there. When they reached the edge of her family's property, she paused. "This is my home," she said softly. He nodded, feeling the unspoken boundary between them. Brr. "I'll leave you here then," he said, but there was a hesitation in his voice. He didn't want the moment to end, even though he knew it had to. "Princess."
Thank you for everything, she said again, her eyes meeting his in a way that made him catch his breath.
Brr. He nodded and turned to leave, but a thought lingered in his mind. He couldn't just walk away from this feeling. Something about her had touched him deeply. Brr. Something about the moment, the fear, and the relief had created a connection that neither of them fully understood yet. As he walked back toward his own home, he replayed the incident in his mind. The fear, the adrenaline, and the relief mingled with the strange warmth he felt whenever he thought of her. He realized that saving her wasn't just an act of heroism. It had awakened a desire to know her better, to protect her, and to be near her. That evening, he found himself glancing toward the direction of her home, wondering if she was thinking about him too. He tried to focus on his chores and the quiet routine of his life, but the memory of her eyes and her soft voice lingered like a gentle echo. Inspiration. Meanwhile, the girl was inside, telling her family what had happened. They were worried, but also grateful. Brr, she couldn't stop thinking about the man who had saved her. The strength in his arms, and the calm in his voice. A sense of safety and admiration had taken root in her heart. Inspiration. She realized that she hadn't just been rescued from the train. She had met someone who had made an unexpected mark on her life. The town soon buzzed with whispers about the daring rescue.
People admired his courage, but he didn't think about that.
Inspiration. His thoughts were with the girl, wondering who she was, why she walked so close to danger, and what her story was. He felt a growing determination to ensure she remained safe, though he didn't yet know how that would happen. By the time night fell, both of them were thinking of the other, feeling a connection neither could fully explain. The day's events had changed something in both of them. For him, it was a mix of admiration, protectiveness, and curiosity. For her, it was gratitude, relief, and the beginning of trust in someone she had just met. As he lay in bed that night, the sound of the wind through the trees outside reminded him of the day's events. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something significant. A chance encounter, a moment of courage, had set something in motion that neither of them could ignore. Narration. And somewhere in the small, quiet town, the girl also lay awake, thinking about the man who had saved her, wondering why she felt such a strange sense of calm when she thought of him. Both of them were unaware that their lives had quietly intertwined in a way that would change everything to come. The next morning, the town seemed quieter than usual. The sun rose slowly, casting golden light over the rooftops and fields. He woke up early, as always, but his mind was not on his chores. Thoughts of the girl who had been so close to danger kept playing over and over. He remembered her eyes, the mix of fear, relief, and something softer that he could not name. Her voice, soft yet steady, echoed in his mind, and he realized he wanted to see her again, to know more about her. After breakfast, he saddled his horse and decided to take the longer route past the train tracks. He hoped to see her, or at least to know that she was safe. The path was familiar, lined with wildflowers and dry grass swaying in the morning breeze. He could hear the soft clip-clop of his horse's hooves and the distant whistle of a train, but his thoughts remained on her. As he neared the area where he had rescued her, he saw movement. At first he thought it might be a stray animal, but then he recognized her figure. She was walking along the path, careful with each step. Her dark hair glimmered in the sunlight, and she seemed deep in thought. When she noticed him, she froze for a moment, then gave a small, hesitant wave. He smiled and waved back. "Good morning," he called gently. "Good morning," she replied, her voice quieter than before, as if she was still unsure how to respond.
He dismounted his horse and approached slowly, not wanting to startle her.
"Are you walking somewhere?" he asked casually, though his curiosity was genuine. She shook her head. "No walking. "I like being outside," she admitted, glancing at the ground for a moment. He nodded. "I understand. Walking helps me think, too." For a few moments there was silence, comfortable and calm. Neither of them knew exactly what to say, but both felt the unspoken bond that had started the day before. "Do you want to walk together?" he asked finally, testing the waters. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. They began walking side by side along the gravel path. At first the conversation was light, casual, talk about the weather, the sounds of the morning, the trains passing in the distance. But soon the girl started opening up in small ways. She talked about her favorite spots near the town, the fields she loved to explore, and small memories of her childhood. He listened carefully, noticing the way her eyes lit up when she spoke of things she loved. He asked questions gently, letting her share without pressure. As they walked, he realized that her life had not been easy. She spoke of struggles, of times when she had to be careful and strong. Her voice held a quiet resilience, a strength that fascinated him. The girl began to notice him too. She saw the care in his eyes, the way he seemed genuinely interested in her words. There was a patience in him, a calm that made her feel safe. She found herself talking more freely, sharing things she had kept to herself before. She realized that she trusted him, even though they had just met. After a while, they reached a small clearing where the grass was soft and wildflowers grew. They sat down, letting the warmth of the sun surround them. He offered her some water from his bottle, and she accepted with a shy smile. The simplicity of the moment, the quiet, the sun, the shared laughter over small things created a bond neither of them expected.
Bert, you're very brave, she said suddenly, looking at him. You didn't hesitate yesterday.
Inspiration.
You just acted.
He shrugged lightly, though a small smile touched his lips. I couldn't just let something happen to you. Inspiration. It would have stayed with me if I didn't do anything. She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand him. Right.
You didn't even know me, she said softly. And yet you risked yourself. He felt a warmth in his chest.
Sometimes, he said quietly, you don't need to know someone to know they matter. The girl was silent for a while, thinking about his words. She realized that there was something different about him. Inspiration. Most people in the town were kind, but he was attentive, strong, yet gentle. She had not met anyone like him before. As the morning turned into afternoon, they continued walking together, exploring the area near the tracks and the fields beyond. He showed her a small stream where he liked to sit, and she shared stories of her own secret spots. They laughed over small things, a bird swooping too close, a misstep on the soft grass, the way a train whistle sounded in the distance. Each moment, each laugh built trust and connection. But despite the calm and joy, there was also an undercurrent of tension. The girl's family had warned her to be careful around strangers, and she knew they would be cautious. She also knew that she felt something for him that confused her, a mixture of admiration, gratitude, and a strange attraction she could not explain. She tried to keep it buried, focusing instead on the conversation and the shared moments. He too felt the tension. There was a pull toward her he could not ignore.
Every glance, every smile, and every word seemed to draw him closer. But he respected the boundaries, understanding that rushing things would only push her away. For now, he focused on being there for her, listening and sharing simple, meaningful moments. As the sun began to lower in the sky, they reluctantly realized it was time to head back.
The girl walked toward her home, and he stayed beside her until she reached the edge of the property. Her family appeared at the doorway, watching silently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and caution. Thank you again, she said softly, turning to him. He nodded. I'll see you tomorrow, he said, hoping she would. She gave a small nod and entered her home, leaving him standing at the gate. On his way back, he reflected on the day. He realized that their connection was growing stronger, that he was thinking about her more than he had expected. Saving her had been one thing, but getting to know her, sharing moments, and seeing her smile, it had created feelings he could not ignore. Meanwhile, inside her home, she spoke to her family about him. They were cautious, but saw the kindness in his eyes and the sincerity in his actions. She found herself smiling at the memory of their laughter and the way he listened so carefully.
A sense of comfort and admiration had grown inside her heart, and she could not help but think about him even after the sun had set.
Over the next few days, their routine continued. He would find small ways to be near her, whether it was passing by the train tracks, offering help with chores, or simply walking nearby. She would cautiously respond, engaging in small talk, sharing stories, and occasionally smiling in a way that made his heart race. Their bond grew quietly, naturally, yet with an intensity that neither could fully explain. But life was not without challenges. Townspeople were skeptical of their growing closeness. Whispers spread, and the girl occasionally felt the weight of judgment. She wondered if her family would approve or if he truly understood her world. For him, it was a learning process, understanding her culture, respecting her boundaries, and realizing that trust could not be rushed. One afternoon, a small misunderstanding occurred. A neighbor misinterpreted their conversation and approached them with questions, creating tension. The girl felt nervous and looked to him for support. He calmly explained the situation, ensuring that the misunderstanding was cleared without conflict. She felt a surge of gratitude and relief, realizing again that she could rely on him. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they walked together one last time before nightfall. The air was cool, and the sounds of the town softened into quiet murmurs. They spoke less and walked more, sharing the peaceful silence. It was in these quiet moments that their connection deepened, where words were not needed to express trust, care, and growing affection. When they reached her home, she paused, hesitant to end the day.
I had a good time today, she admitted softly. So did I, he said, smiling gently.
We'll do it again tomorrow? She nodded, feeling a flutter of excitement she couldn't hide. Yes,
I'd like that.
As he walked back to his own home, he felt a mix of emotions: joy, anticipation, and a growing sense of responsibility.
He wanted to protect her, to be near her, and to understand her world.
But he also knew that patience was necessary, that trust and feelings could not be forced. For now he was content with these small, shared moments that had begun to form a quiet, powerful connection between them. That night, both of them lay awake thinking about each other. The day had been ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in the moments they shared. A friendship, or perhaps something more, was beginning to take root, delicate but undeniable. Neither knew where it would lead, but both felt that their lives had changed in a meaningful way. And as the stars appeared in the clear night sky, a silent promise hung in the air. A promise that tomorrow would bring another chance, another shared moment, and perhaps another step closer to a bond neither of them could yet fully understand. The days that followed felt lighter at first, filled with quiet walks, shared laughter, and small moments of connection. He found himself thinking about her more than ever. Every sound, every movement along the tracks seemed to remind him of her, and she, too, found that she could not forget him. Even in moments of silence at home, the memory of his calm voice and steady presence lingered, pulling her thoughts toward him. But peace in the small town could not last forever. One afternoon, while he was riding along the outskirts of the town, he noticed something that immediately put him on edge. The girl was near the train tracks again, this time collecting wildflowers. At first, she seemed carefree, unaware of the danger that could come so suddenly. But then he noticed the loose gravel near the edge and the train approaching in the distance. Panic surged in his chest. He urged his horse forward, shouting her name. "Wait! Don't get too close!" His voice carried over the open field, sharp with urgency. She turned quickly, startled, and for a moment fear crossed her face. But the train was closer this time, moving faster than he had anticipated. Without hesitation, he spurred his horse onward, heart pounding. Time seemed to stretch. The gravel beneath her feet shifted, and she lost her balance.
He reached her just in time, grabbing her wrist and pulling her back to safety as the train roared past.
The wind knocked them both off balance, and they tumbled onto the soft grass, hearts racing and lungs burning. She clung to him instinctively, fear still in her eyes. I didn't see it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're safe now," he said, holding her close for a moment, feeling the warmth of her body against his. "I've got you." For a moment the world was nothing but the two of them, their breathing mingling in the quiet that followed the train's thunder. He looked at her face, pale, wide-eyed, and trembling. He realized how deeply he cared, how fiercely he wanted to protect her, not just from the dangers of the world, but from any pain, any fear.
I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean to. You don't need to apologize, he said firmly.
Narration. You couldn't know, but I'm here now. Barish.
That's what matters. As the adrenaline faded, she looked at him with something new in her eyes.
It was more than gratitude this time. It was a mixture of admiration, trust, and something softer, warmer that made his chest tighten. For a brief moment, neither spoke. Words felt unnecessary. The connection between them had grown stronger, undeniable in the way their eyes met and held. When they finally stood brushing grass and dust off their clothes, she looked at him, hesitation in her gaze. Narration. You didn't have to risk yourself again, she said softly. Narration. I would do it 100 times over, he replied, his voice quiet but certain. I can't ignore you, Bert. Not now. Not ever. The weight of his words hung in the air. The weight of his words hung in the air. She felt her heart race, unsure of how to respond. For so long, she had been cautious around people, especially those outside her family. But now she felt a strange comfort, a sense of safety she had never known. Bert. And with that safety came feelings she could no longer hide. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the field. They walked back toward the town in silence, each lost in thought. He could feel the tension building between them, the pull of unspoken emotions, the awareness of a growing bond that neither wanted to name yet. That evening, she spoke to her family in quiet tones, recounting the day's events. Her family was concerned, but also grateful. They had noticed the way he cared for her, the way he had acted without hesitation. They saw his sincerity and began to trust that his intentions were genuine. But they also cautioned her to remain careful, to protect herself and her heart. She nodded, understanding their wisdom, but she could not deny the feelings growing inside her. Meanwhile, he reflected on the day's events, sitting on his porch and watching the stars appear one by one. He thought about the fear he had felt, the rush of adrenaline, and the clarity that had come in the quiet aftermath. He realized he could no longer ignore his feelings. It was not just admiration or protectiveness. It was something deeper, something that tied him to her, in a way he could not fully explain. The next morning brought a new challenge. The town had planned a small festival near the tracks, a celebration of local culture and history. She had wanted to attend, and he had promised to accompany her to ensure she was safe. But the festival was crowded, filled with noise, laughter, and excitement. Keeping her safe in such a setting required constant attention, and he found himself more protective than ever. As they moved through the crowd, she stayed close to him, occasionally slipping her hand into his when she felt uncertain. He noticed it immediately, the gentle touch sending a rush of warmth through him. Every glance, every gesture, deepened the unspoken connection between them. But amid the joy and celebration, danger could arise in subtle ways. A sudden push from the crowd, a lost child, or someone unaware of the train tracks nearby could create a moment of crisis. And then it happened. A small child ran too close to the tracks, and the girl instinctively moved to warn him. He reacted instantly, stepping between the child and potential danger, pulling the girl back with him. The moment was fleeting but intense, a reminder that the world was unpredictable and that both courage and care were necessary to navigate it. After the crowd had settled and the danger passed, they found a quiet corner away from the noise. They sat together, breathing heavily, hearts still racing. Narration. She looked at him, eyes wide and sincere. You always seem to know what to do, she said, her voice soft. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Narration. I don't always know, but I know I can't leave you to face danger alone. Her chest tightened at his words. Narration. She felt a wave of emotion she could not suppress. Gratitude, admiration, and a growing awareness of her feelings for him. She realized that she trusted him completely, more than anyone she had ever known. And with that trust came a quiet longing, a desire to be near him in ways that scared and thrilled her at the same time.
Days passed, and the bond between them continued to deepen.
Narration. They shared quiet walks, helping each other with small tasks, laughing over simple mistakes, and learning more about each other's worlds. He taught her small skills, like how to ride safely near the tracks and how to read signs of weather in the sky. She shared stories of her family, her traditions, and the things she loved most about her heritage. Each shared moment strengthened their connection, building trust and understanding. But with the closeness came emotional vulnerability. Both felt the pull toward each other, the growing desire that neither could fully express. He worried about overstepping boundaries, about respecting her family and her world. She worried about what her family and the town might think, and about the intensity of the feelings that were stirring inside her.
One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, they walked along the tracks once more.
The world was quiet, the air filled with the scent of wildflowers and the faint whistle of a distant train. They walked side by side, neither speaking, both aware of the tension that had grown between them. Finally, he stopped and turned to her. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice low and steady.
Narration. She looked at him, curiosity and nervousness in her eyes. I can't ignore this anymore, he continued.
I care about you. More than I should, maybe. But I can't pretend I don't.
Narration.
You matter to me more than anything. She felt her heart skip a beat, emotions swirling inside her.
Relief, joy, and longing all collided in her chest. She had felt the same way, but had been afraid to speak, afraid of what it might mean. Now, hearing him say it aloud, she felt a sense of freedom and clarity. I feel the same, she admitted softly.
I didn't want to say it because I wasn't sure, but I do. I care about you too.
For a long moment they just looked at each other, the unspoken understanding between them stronger than words. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them, connected by trust, courage, and newfound love.
And yet, even in this moment of emotional revelation, they knew that challenges lay ahead.
Their bond had grown stronger, but it would require care, patience, and understanding to navigate the world around them. For now, though, they allowed themselves to simply be together, to savor the quiet joy of knowing that their feelings were shared and real. As the night settled over the town, they parted reluctantly, each carrying the warmth of the other in their hearts. The events of the day, the near danger, the shared moments, and the emotional honesty had changed them. They were no longer just two people connected by a chance encounter. They were bound by trust, courage, and the beginnings of love that neither could ignore.
And somewhere in the quiet of their thoughts, each realized that life had shifted in a way that could not be undone.
What had started as a simple rescue had blossomed into something deeper, something that promised growth, connection, and the possibility of a shared future. The next morning the town woke slowly, bathed in soft sunlight. Birds sang from the trees, and a gentle breeze moved through the fields. He woke earlier than usual, his mind already on her. The events of the past days had changed him in ways he had not expected. Saving her once had been an act of instinct. But now, knowing her, understanding her, and sharing moments with her had stirred emotions he could no longer ignore. Burris. He saddled his horse and decided to visit the field near the train tracks, where they had spent so many quiet moments together. As he approached, he saw her already there, collecting flowers and humming softly. Narration. Her movements were calm, but there was a lightness to her step, a kind of peace that came from feeling safe and cared for. When she saw him, her face lit up with a smile that made his chest tighten. He dismounted and walked toward her, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness.
Good morning, he said gently. Good morning, she replied, her eyes sparkling.
There was a quiet joy in her voice, a warmth that made him realize just how much these moments mattered to both of them. They walked together, picking flowers and talking about the simple things in life, the wind, the sunlight, and the beauty of the world around them. It was ordinary, yet it felt extraordinary because they shared it. Each laugh, each glance, each word built a connection that was becoming impossible to ignore. As they reached a small stream, he stopped and turned to her. "I want to ask you something," he said softly, unsure of how she would respond. Inspiration. She looked at him, curiosity and a hint of nervousness in her eyes. "What is it?" "I want to know if you trust me completely," he said, his voice earnest. "Not just for your safety, but with your heart. Because I feel like
I want to be someone who's always there for you, in every way I can."
Her chest tightened at his words. She had trusted him already, but hearing it spoken aloud with such sincerity made her heart race. "I do trust you," she admitted softly, "more than I have ever trusted anyone." He smiled gently, taking her hand in his. The warmth of her skin sent a shiver through him, a reminder of how deeply he cared. "Then let me stay," he said quietly.
Let me be someone you can always rely on, not just now, but...
Inspiration. Always.
Her eyes filled with emotion, and she nodded.
Yes, I want that too.
From that moment, their connection became even stronger. They spent the days together exploring the fields, helping each other with chores, and sharing stories about their families and dreams. Every interaction was filled with trust, care, and the quiet joy of companionship. They laughed more freely, spoke more openly, and allowed themselves to be vulnerable in ways they had never experienced before. But life, even in a small town, could still bring challenges. One day, a sudden storm rolled in from the mountains, dark clouds covering the sky and strong winds shaking the trees. The girl had been walking near the fields when the first drops of rain began to fall. He saw her from a distance, moving quickly but struggling against the wind. Without hesitation, he ran toward her, shielding her with his coat and guiding her to shelter. Under the cover of a large tree, they both caught their breath, rain soaking their clothes. She looked at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and gratitude.
"Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'll always protect you," he said firmly.
No matter what comes our way. The storm passed, leaving behind a rainbow stretched across the sky. They stood together, watching it in silence, feeling a quiet sense of hope and promise. The events of the day reminded them that the world could be unpredictable, but as long as they had each other, they could face anything.
In the days that followed, their bond grew even stronger.
Breath. They shared quiet moments in the evenings, sitting by the stream or walking along the tracks, speaking softly about their hopes, their fears, and their dreams for the future. Each moment brought them closer, building a foundation of trust, love, and mutual respect. The girl began to share more of her world with him, her family's traditions, stories from her childhood, and the lessons she had learned from her parents. He listened intently, fascinated by her strength and wisdom. Inspiration. In turn, he shared his own experiences, his dreams, and the values that guided him. Through these exchanges, they not only grew closer emotionally, but also learned to understand and respect each other's perspectives. One afternoon, while walking near the edge of the town, they stumbled upon a small injured bird. The girl immediately knelt down, gently examining it. Brr. He joined her, helping to carefully cradle the tiny creature. Together they worked to create a safe space for the bird until it could fly again. Inspiration. The act was simple, yet it reflected the care, compassion, and teamwork that had become the cornerstone of their relationship.
"Look at it," she whispered, smiling softly.
Inspiration.
It trusts us to keep it safe, just like I trust you. He felt a warmth in his chest at her words.
And I'll always do my best not to let you down, he replied quietly, squeezing her hand gently. Their families began to notice the closeness between them as well. At first, they were cautious, concerned about the intensity of their bond and the challenges it might bring. But over time, they saw the respect, care, and sincerity that guided their actions. Slowly, their families gave their blessing, recognizing that this was not a fleeting connection, but a genuine relationship built on trust, courage, and love. As the weeks turned into months, the two spent more time together, learning from each other and supporting one another. Inspirations. They shared quiet evenings under the stars, talked about the future, and dreamed of a life where they could continue to grow together. Every challenge they faced, every moment of fear or uncertainty, only strengthened their bond. Inspiration. One evening, as the sun set over the town, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, he turned to her. "Do you realize how much you've changed my life?" he asked softly.
She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sky. "You've changed mine too," she replied.
"You've shown me courage, kindness, and a way to trust again." He smiled, taking both of her hands in his. "Then let's promise something," he said, his voice serious but gentle.
No matter what comes, we face it together.
We protect each other, support each other, and never let go. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Breath. I promise. From that day forward, their relationship flourished.
They faced life's challenges with a sense of partnership and unwavering support.
Breath. Whether it was helping neighbors, caring for animals, or simply walking together along the fields, they found joy in each other's presence.
Every day their love grew deeper, built on the foundation of trust, shared experiences, and the moments of danger and heroism that had brought them together. They also found ways to give back to the community that had watched their story unfold.
They helped organize small-town events, assisted those in need, and shared their knowledge and skills with others. In doing so, they strengthened not only their bond but also the ties that connected them to the people and the land they called home. Even in quiet moments, the connection between them was undeniable. A glance, a touch, or a smile spoke volumes. The girl, once cautious and wary of strangers, now found comfort and joy in his presence. He, once a man focused solely on his routines and responsibilities, now felt a depth of emotion and purpose that came from loving and being loved in return. One evening, as they sat together watching the stars, she rested her head on his shoulder. "I never imagined something like this could happen," she whispered. "Neither did I," he admitted, wrapping an arm around her.
but I'm grateful every single day that it did. They stayed like that for a long time, watching the night sky, sharing dreams, and simply enjoying the quiet happiness that had grown between them. The events of the past, the near train accidents, the storms, the moments of fear and courage had led them to this place. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and doubt, and yet they had emerged stronger, closer, and more certain of their feelings than ever before. Brrr. As the night deepened, they made plans for the future. Simple plans at first, like more walks, helping each other with daily tasks and spending time together.
But gradually they began to dream bigger, imagining a life where they could continue to grow, support each other, and face whatever challenges the world might bring.
In the end, the story of how he saved her from the train was no longer just a story of heroism.
Inspiration, trust, and love. A chance encounter had turned into a bond that neither could ignore, a relationship built on courage, care, and the willingness to be vulnerable.
And as they walked hand in hand back to town under the soft glow of the moon, both knew that their lives had changed forever. The girl, once cautious and wary of the world, had found safety, trust, and love. The young man, once focused solely on his own routines, had discovered a depth of feeling and purpose that he had never imagined. Together, they had faced danger, built trust, and nurtured a love that would guide them through whatever the future held. And in that quiet town, under the endless sky, their story continued, full of hope, joy, and the quiet, unshakable bond that had begun with a single act of courage on the train tracks.